time I see that video, no matter how many times I see it, I think it is still just very powerful, and it helps me really think through both the period of isolation, these past 6 months that we've been through, and also sort of think of COVID-19 as not just this tragic thing that had happened in our lives, but also to look at it as our reset. To use it as an opportunity to focus on looking forward, to try to focus on some of the positive, in addition to the stressful things that have happened, and to focus on what have we learned during this period? What are lessons? What are ways that we grew? What are things that are important to us? What are things that we've tried that are new that we maybe never thought we would? What are things that were difficult that we overcome? And how do we feel now? And I think that sort of framework for ourselves and for our kids can be very powerful and very helpful as we keep going and head into this new year, which by no means are we done with COVID-19. Unfortunately, this is a period of time that is going to continue to try our resilience and try our ability to adjust because of the fact that the length of it is uncertain. We don't know how it's going to change or continue to change our life, but we have to continue to be able to shift and move with it and take lessons that are learned and use them to move forward. So I think it's really important for us to do that for ourselves, and then to help kids in our lives do that, and our children to do that. And so how has the pandemic impacted kids? Many ways, the same way as it impacted adults. There was this period of isolation where we weren't leaving the house. Some people, depending on their individual circumstances, might still very well be living fairly isolated and quarantined, particularly if there's family members with health concerns. Then all of a sudden, one day to the next, kids lost their school structure, which has really been the backbone of their day-to-day life. And losing that structure has been very difficult, particularly for kids who struggle anyway and who really need that structure to be able to function adequately. The lack of peer contact is a big one, right? Childhood and adolescence is all about peers. It's all about autonomy. It's all about growing up and being independent and being away from parents. And then kids did not have that for a period of time, or had it in very different ways than usual. Parental stressors, and of course the list there is long. Many families struggled with food, housing, money, jobs, illnesses, multiple generations having to take care of each other. And then just purely, even in a family that maybe hasn't been impacted by those things, just purely the balancing of work and at-home schooling, a lot of stress on adults in the past 6 months. We also know that in isolation, numbers of domestic violence and child abuse do go up. There are families who have suffered from that. And that problem for the children especially is compounded by the fact that there's a lack of screening and no external oversights. Schools, pediatricians, healthcare providers, kids lost their regular screenings during this period. Many families have been impacted by trauma, grief, various losses, and not just losing family members, but also everybody's been impacted by losing normalcy, losing major milestones, graduation, middle school transition, athletic teams, going off to college in a way they imagined, the prom, whatever it is, kids have felt the losses of those events and those milestones. And then loss and disruption to existing care. So kids that were previously doing fairly well in care, now the healthcare system was shifting, and within a matter of weeks, we had to reinvent ourselves as clinicians to be able to continue to provide care. But that care many of times was disrupted or lost. And then racial and healthcare disparities that existed before COVID, but were much more pronounced during this period. The concurrent civil unrest and events around the country had impacted certain groups a lot more significantly. And we know COVID itself and the healthcare impact of COVID itself was felt much more strongly among certain groups. So the well-being of parents and children during the COVID-19 pandemic, a national survey. The results of this just came out this month in pediatrics. And basically what this tells us is that this was a large survey asking people to self-assess how they felt about their own physical health and mental health. And in column A, you can see physical health results, and in B, mental health. And this tells you that about 17, almost 18% of adults felt that their physical health was worse during the COVID-19 pandemic, and about 4% of kids felt the same. So the impact there is much lower, which is very congruent with the medical knowledge of kids were impacted a lot less than adults by COVID. And then for mental health, about 27% of adults said that their mental health suffered due to the pandemic and they felt worse than before. And about 14% of kids, so about half of that is the result for kids that have said the same. And the reason why I highlight this is because it both tells us that I think us as adults sometimes carry more of the weight of this pandemic. And then also that as a rule, even though we worry about kids and we worry about how this impacted them, but the norm with kids is resilience and is the fact that they actually endure these difficulties better than adults do. So what is resilience? One definition is that resilience is the capacity of a dynamic system to adapt successfully to challenges that threaten its function and survival. And, what does that really mean during a COVID-19 era when we do have this, real threat from COVID itself and then the resulting issues that came along with it. During this period of time, resilience has to be redefined a little bit, because normally resilience is bouncing back like a spring to our usual state, our pre-crisis norm, but this crisis is not ending. This crisis is ongoing. The events are large and the magnitude of this is large and it's uncertain. So in this situation, we can't just simply bounce back. We really have to learn and teach our kids to bounce forward, to face this uncertain future, and to create together a new sense of normalcy as we recalibrate to these challenges that many of them we don't even know how to anticipate yet. We might be worried about some things, but tomorrow those might not be things we worry about anymore, and there might be new things we worry about. But we really have to take that on with a resilient mindset that whatever comes our way, we'll be able to manage, and we have to help our kids obtain that mindset. 5 essential elements that really promote that sort of recovery in a traumatic situation like this are on this slide. And this really comes from a therapeutic modality called stress first aid, which is developed for periods of stress that are not one distinct event, but ongoing long-term chronic events, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And those 5 elements are really a sense of safety, calming, connection, self-efficacy, and hope. And I'm going to talk about how can we help ourselves and our kids obtain that. So how do we promote a sense of safety in kids? You as parents can do a lot, and the school has done a lot as they reopen their buildings in preparing and in communicating with kids and families what to expect in terms of how we're going to keep everybody safe in the schools. But it's really important with your child to have an open conversation and really explore what their concerns are. Start with what they understand. What do they understand about the pandemic? What do they understand about safety precautions? Why are we doing them? Why are they in place? Start with where they are at. They might have misperceptions that might need to be corrected. Adolescents might underestimate their risk. More anxious kids might overestimate their own risk. So some of those things need to be right-sized and corrected. So it's really important to learn from them about what it is that they understand. And also very important to normalize that it is okay to be anxious. It's okay to have concerns. It's understandable. That's a normal stress reaction to this very stressful situation. And the reason why that's really important to do is because when there is some sort of a real threat, like with COVID-19, saying everything's gonna be okay, or you're gonna be fine, or like when you go to the pediatrician, it's the golden rule to not say it's not gonna hurt. You know, be honest with kids. Don't tell them that everything is gonna be okay when you don't really know that. You can't guarantee that. So it's really important to validate their concerns, because otherwise they just might end up feeling less safe. Blanket reassurances do not work. So be honest, normalize those reactions, and balance that with explaining what exactly is being done to keep them safe. What is school doing? What are doctors and science and together us as a community and humanity doing to keep ourselves safe and to get out at the other end of the COVID-19 pandemic? But then also really important to get kids empowered and get kids to really understand what is their role in keeping not only themselves safe, but keeping each other safe. Help them feel strong by saying, you have the power to keep your friends safe. You have a part in that. You can do your part in keeping grandma safe, in making sure that we're going to be okay. And really, when kids feel that they have a part in it, they can feel better in control, less anxious, more safe, and they can also get more with the program in terms of being compliant with safety precautions and really following the rules, because they understand why that is important. Next, we're going to talk about calming. So this category is extremely important. I'm really hoping that if you have joined any of the previous webinars we did during the pandemic, if not, you can maybe watch the recordings. We talked a lot about fostering mindfulness practices and really creating good coping skills in the family, and starting, we always have to start with ourselves. We have to really be able to manage and cope with the situations ahead of us and manage our own stress, our own anxiety, and model good coping skills to our kids. Really teach them to be, it's okay to say that, we're upset, nervous, angry, worried, whatever it is we're feeling. It's okay to acknowledge to kids how we're feeling. And it's also important to highlight to them what we're doing to deal with that, what we're doing to make ourselves feel better, and what are ways that they can practice that as well. Also really important to encourage kids to self-soothe. And self-soothing, of course, means that when they're upset, they're able to calm themselves down. And really, I just want to warn everybody to, in this age of virtual presence and really going to technology for everything, even though we also talk about using apps to help good mindfulness skills and coping skills, which is a little bit different use of technology, but encourage kids to have other ways that they can cope. Encourage kids to not have technology as their only self-soothing, because it's really important to foster other ways that they can calm themselves with things that, they can do anywhere, anytime. Really important to equip them with those skills. So mindfulness, breathing exercises, yoga, exercise, whatever it may be, whatever works for you and your family, whatever works for your child, find that thing that really helps and really works, and really stick with it and encourage them to practice it on a daily basis. Exercise gets its own bullet. Because especially, again, sitting in front of screens, still a lot of the time, even with hybrid schooling, or especially if your child is still in virtual schooling, being sedentary, being inside has an impact on the mind and the body. And it's really important to work against that and to stay active, to take frequent movement breaks, to incorporate some sort of movement, walking, exercise into the day. Really helps kids study and and learn better if that's a part of their day, and does well for mental health as well, not to mention physical health and, the overall holistic benefits. Also, one thing to do that might be helpful is that if during the past 6 months, like many families, you did form some new positive habits that had developed in your family or with your child, take time to really notice those, to really make conscious effort to continue them, to carry them forward, to not let them get lost in being back to the routine and back in the school building, to really make effort to maintain those, because even though we're a step closer to our usual reality, we're still very far from it, and these habits are lifelong, have lifelong benefits and really need to be carried forward and reinforced. Connection. So this time of physical distancing, hopefully you already have been able to find ways to foster social connection for your child and for your family. Really important to continue to do so, to continue to be proactive about it, even though we're now not as isolated perhaps where we were, although some families might still need to be, again, with various concerns. But really important to be proactive, to make sure that there's connections, to, if at all possible, try to incorporate face-to-face interactions with safe social distancing measures, because they are an important part of kids learning about themselves is through their peers. Also for teenagers who tend to communicate with each other mostly through texting and social media, try to encourage them to incorporate ways that they can actually see their friends and hear their friends and not just text. The brain actually processes information differently, and there's evidence that says that just through texting you can maintain a relationship, but not as well as if you incorporate video and audio. So it's really important to encourage them to do so. And another warning along those lines is that we are utilizing and harnessing technology to our benefits. And, there's a period that was the only way of connecting. It still is a very important way of connecting. We're still doing these education sessions on technology and so on and so forth. Really, really important for parents to be aware of their child's digital life to the same extent you're aware to their face-to-face real life. The same way that you would know their friends and you would know who they're talking to, you would know whose house they go to. Please try to have conversations and educate yourself and talk to them about who are they spending time with, what platforms are they using, what websites are they visiting, how much time they're spending on each. Setting limits and setting expectations is important, and really fostering those good digital citizenship skills that they learn at school, and really alerting them about the various dangers and risks involved with being present online. So I think important to balance those things, and while it's important to have them connect, it's also important to have them learn to do so in a safe way. Self-efficacy and confidence is the next category. And here, what happens is there's a traumatic event, there's a stressful period of time, things change different, we get shaken, our sense of confidence gets maybe shaken. As kids are going back to school or continuing virtual school or partially going back in person, they might feel like, oh, I did terrible with school in the spring, it's going to be horrible for the whole year. Really try to work with them to reframe goals and expectations and talk to them about how is this year going to be different? What are we expecting differently? What is the focus of this year? What is the expectation? And really reframe it and set them up to succeed and set them up for success. Set goals that they can achieve and maybe go day by day or little by little and increase them throughout the year, but really important to set them up for success. Get them involved with their community, get them proud of their community, get them involved with their school community. When kids can get involved, with the greater good and feel like they're part of the solution, they can feel really good about there. Like the video said, they can really get fired up, and they do have a lot of class. They have a lot of ideas. Really important to harness those. If during the COVID-19 pandemic, maybe it was supporting healthcare workers and the community, or the old people that couldn't go shopping in the neighborhood. Try to find another worthy cause now that they can get involved with their community, recognize when they're making a difference, and really empower them with the successes. There might be some experiences during isolation, such as having to be more independent, learning a new skill, trying something they've never tried before. Use those experiences to really increase their sense of confidence, and help that carry them forward into this period that is going to continue to require them to be quite independent. From the fact that now kindergarteners have to open their own snack at school, to the fact that in virtual schooling, you still have to really organize yourself and know where your codes are, and really be able to function independently, for good family balance and the well-being of the kids. It's really important to foster those independent skills. Instilling hope is the last category in the 5 essential elements, and really important for us as adults and as parents to help find meaning in all of this for ourselves and for our kids, to accept and validate all the changes that have been difficult and challenging. Highlight the things that have changed for the better and things that are positive, and really also emphasize things that are the same. Sameness is always comfort and safety. And so if we can highlight to kids that not everything is different, and many things in fact are the same in our life, and it's not that everything completely changed around us, it's really important to consciously remind them of that, because they are going to again feel more safe and more hopeful about their future. So next, a few more tips beyond having these good principles about resilience. Structure is going to be a really important one. New routines are going to have to be developed, whether they're for home learning or for school. Things are looking a little bit different, so we do have to establish new routines. It's great to get kids involved with creating those new routines. If they are able to control any part of it, if they can get a say over certain decisions, they're going to feel better in control, and also they're going to be more likely to follow something that they helped create. So I encourage you to do that at home, especially for the virtual days, and also for the home part of the school days. And then communicate and create space for discussion. Really be consistent with your expectations. Yes, it is different. Yes, it is stressful. That doesn't mean anything goes. There's still things we expect our kids to do. There's still ways that we expect them to behave. It's important to communicate that, but also important, especially with teenagers, to not micromanage every little step. I mean, we might be trying to control our own anxiety about their learning by really trying to manage every single small piece. First of all, they get annoyed with that. And second of all, they're not going to then do it. And third of all, we are taking away the opportunity for them to excel and feel mastery and feel confident about that they can do things independently. So really important to set expectations, but give them opportunities to succeed themselves and really rise to the occasion. Sleep is a big one. I mean, there might be questions about this later on. I know this was a topic all throughout the isolation. Kids' sleep routines were all over the place. Now it's a new beginning. And if you're back to the building or if you're virtually connecting, you do have to get up and get ready and be on screen. So really important to help reset those circadian rhythms and establish new schedules. If you haven't done that yet and your child's struggling, there's different ways to do that. You can either jump ahead and just start with the wake up times and then hope that they get so tired that they eventually start sleeping early on, or start bringing back the bedtime early and earlier each day. You can go either direction. Very important step in resetting the circadian rhythm is to allow sunshine to enter your body through your eyes, because that is actually how the brain turns on and knows it's daytime. So whether they're going outside for a few minutes or whether they're headed to school and they are actually outside for a little bit, it will help their brains reset. So it's really important to work on that. And then lastly, limit your own and your child's media consumption. Really important to be in the know and to be aware of what's happening around us. But no doubt, and no matter which channel you're watching, media can get very overwhelming. It's a lot of information presented sometimes in ways that is difficult to interpret, especially for children. They might misunderstand, they might hear things that they really don't understand. So it's really important to help manage that for them. And then, if things don't go so well for your child and they're not adjusting well, some warning signs, especially if they're new and your child's never acted like that before, and they're persistent, meaning they are beyond the first few adjustment weeks of the school year, which we do expect kids to have an adjustment period. That's completely normal. But if it does expand for a long time, is persistent and new, really disrupting functioning, really disrupting the day-to-day, that is when you might need another assessment, you might need an assessment, you might need help, and you might need more supports. Kids often will present with physical complaints. I mean, we all know about the first day school tummy aches and headaches and so on and so forth. So definitely somatic complaints can be common, and not just with little kids, even with older kids. Difficulty focusing, paying attention, organizing, that might become apparent because now, especially with virtual learning, there's new routines to be learned, new ways to organize oneself. If really kids are not adjusting and can't keep up with it, that might be cause for concern. Ongoing sleep issues, oversleeping, undersleeping, having difficulty getting up, isolating oneself, a lot of sadness and anxiety. Again, a certain level of anxiety is expected and completely normal, but when it becomes to the level of really impacting on functioning, impacting on sleeping, on eating, on being able to learn, that's when we start really worrying about it. Uncharacteristic behavioral issues, anger, irritability, can be seen in kids when they're not feeling well. And then unpleasant, repetitive, intrusive thoughts, things that they really just can't get out of their mind. And because of that, they can't focus and do other things, might be of concern as well. Those are just some things. And certainly if you have any questions, you can chat it in and we'll try to address them as we go. And before sharing some resources, just a last reminder to all the adults, do your best. You have to go easy on yourself and take care of yourself first, because if you're not doing well, the kids are gonna have a hard time. Seek advice from those who know your child. Go to your school, go to your teacher, go to your counselor, talk to them about your concerns. They see your kids now again, if not every day, every other day. But they see your kids, they know your kids, they really can be tremendously helpful in guiding you. And certainly all the counseling and psychology and social work teams at all the Rockwell Center schools also have access to our team at the Behavioral Health Center when there's concerns that they feel we need to help address. I do have some resources from professional organizations that I wanted to share. And I think Noreen will get this recording and slides sent out to all of you guys, so no need to take notes. But there are specific toolkits put together by the various professional organizations to help families transition back to school after COVID-19. And they include more very specific tips for kids that are struggling with wearing the mask or observing the distancing rules, or kids that have panic attacks, anxiety, learning difficulties, and so on. These guides go into even more detail about how to help parents address those things with their kids. And then lastly, our contact information at the Behavioral Health Center and our Cohen's Children's Medical Center resources for you guys to refer to. We do have a series of other webinars about COVID-19, how to talk to kids about it, to proper hand washing, and some other managing anxiety, mindfulness, other topics that are covered. And that concludes my part of the presentation. If you guys now want to open it up to questions for our team, we'll be happy to take them. Noreen, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm not seeing questions coming in, but I do want to thank you very much. That was a very detail-rich and specific guidance for parents. I took a lot of notes myself because you just reinforced a lot of really good stuff. I thank you so much for joining us, Ariana and Zoya as well. Thank you so much. I did record this, so we're going to post it on the district website. I'm sure there will be questions from those that view it later, and I know that we'll be together again at some point this fall with more presentations for parents. So.
Yes, we're gonna start a series of webinars for parents on various topics. We did send out a survey at the end of last year, and many of you had responded to it and gave us great ideas. But continue to communicate with your school team if there's something you really want to learn about or hear about, or if you have questions, let your school's counselor know, or let your school team know, and they will work with us and let us know, and we're happy to help. They want the contact slide back up, so I'll put that back up. Here we go.
I will say though that it really is such a wonderful feeling of hope and excitement and happiness to be back in the schoolhouse, and I just hope that just continues. The kids are amazing. They truly are much more resilient than the adults. I don't know if we're all just really tired from the planning and the brainstorming, but I just stood in the hallway and watched the kids pass as if they never left. So we're hoping that that continues.
Yes, they're happy to see each other. They're happy to be back, and they'll give us strength.
That's true. So thank you again to the panelists, and thank you for joining us, Rockwell Center community, and we'll see everybody soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.